I'd like to call this evening's meeting to order at 6 p.m. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any additional items for consideration on the agenda?
We do not.
Then I need a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting on March 13th and the special meeting on March 31st, as well as the budget workshop on April 3rd?
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Brings us to the consent agenda, which is 3.1 through 4.2 tonight. Can I have a motion to approve the following consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent?
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion on the items? School calendar, do you want to just
Yeah.
state that out loud?
We have one unused emergency day, so we, in agreement with the HTA, would like to move that to Friday, May 23rd, to give that back and extend the Memorial holiday. Traditionally, that's what we've done with our unused snow days. So we'd like to amend the agenda, or the calendar, for Friday, May 23rd for that give back day.
As long as it doesn't snow anymore.
Yeah, right?
Any other discussion on the items? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That brings us to Ms. Thomas's nightlight.
Okay, well, this evening, I'm happy to extend my sincere appreciation to Mr. Jeremy West for organizing and supporting the Kids Heart Challenge. Thanks to his dedication and hard work this year, our students and families once again achieved a record-breaking year, raising an incredible $7,753.64 for the American Heart Association. So thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you so much. That brings our presentation, the district presentation we'll do this evening at this time. If Mr. Crum could come forward for that.
Thanks, Michelle. We'll try to be brief. I think through the course of about a dozen or so public meetings and garnering feedback and going through things in more detail, there's not a real need to get into specifics. Bill and I and the team took the feedback that we received at the budget workshop last week, feedback we received through the budget coffees, feedback we received from students, faculty, to come up with a proposal and a recommendation for you, the board, for adoption of the 25-26 budget. Before I give sort of an overview, I just want to thank you folks, Bill, the rest of our team, administrative team, faculty, staff, students, and all of our stakeholders in the community for the valuable input that they provided at meetings, via email, through conversations. And we listened and kept in mind all the feedback that we received and really tried to come up with a recommendation that we felt balanced first and foremost for the needs of our students and also the feedback that we received from the different stakeholder groups. So I'm going to cut right to the chase. Everybody's probably going to read ahead. The proposed budget that we're recommending for adoption tonight is not tax cap compliant and would require an override of the tax cap and would require a tax levy increase of 6.7%. Bill's going to talk about it more specifically in a few minutes. We have 4 faculty vacancies that we anticipate as of June 30th through retirement or resignation. Included in this spending plan is replacing 2 of those positions with new hires and absorbing 2 of those positions with existing faculty. Bill will tell you in a minute which ones are which and how we plan on doing that. $16.4 million total budget proposed for 25-26, which is a 4.77% increase over the current year budget. That's all inclusive, so that includes all the program, administration, and capital expenditures, including debt service on the capital project. 6.7% levy increase, okay? Our allowable levy increase under the tax cap is 4.27%. So we're just under 2.5% over that allowable limit. And in terms of dollars, it's $211,480. Last year, at this time, when we were talking about the current year budget, we laid out a plan, a 4-year plan to utilize $750,000 of budgeted use of our reserves. We're on schedule to continue that. So in the current year budget, we're utilizing $300,000. Next year, we will plan, and we have budgeted for the use of $225,000 additional dollars of reserves. And we're estimating a 3% increase in foundation aid as part of our eventual state aid run from New York State. For context, 3% in foundation aid is about $112,000. Okay? No delay there. Sorry. I'm right to the end. So why the recommendation to override the cap? Again, Bill's going to talk about the staffing implications in a minute. First and foremost, there's a lot of uncertainty with state funding. This will be the 6th year in a row that New York State has not passed an on-time budget. What does that mean for schools? Basically, we're guessing. We do have executive proposals, aid proposals that are released in January to go off of. But until the state budget is finalized, school districts are not certain what they're going to get in revenue from the state. We were in this boat last year. We estimated, we were counting on a 3% sort of hold harmless minimum increase. Our aid was frozen for this current year. So with estimating or hoping or budgeting a 3% increase again for next year, it's essentially flat funding from on paper from this year to next. But even so, with a 3% increase, $112,000 over the span of 2 years is not enough for us to keep pace with our expenses on a $16 million budget when we do here. So we've talked about this. We are unique in this region, certainly in this immediate region, and then we are more heavily dependent on our tax levy than we are foundation aid. This is very dangerous and more so for schools that are more dependent on state aid, not knowing what this figure will be. There are new formulas, new metrics being used in the foundation aid formula in the executive proposal. That's data that was pulled from November of 2024. So even if different metrics are used this year, some of those metrics are going to be updated, we suspect, with the adopted budget, which could mean less aid for schools. But again, we are budgeting a 3% increase. Uncertainty in federal funding. We receive about $250,000 each year in ESSA funds and IDEA funds. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding federal funding. So again, more of a reliance on the tax levy on an annual basis. And then lastly, the history here at HCS, really, I want to focus on the recent history during the years that the tax cap has been in play. Kind of refer to it as the tax cap era. This is only the second time in 14 years that we've recommended to the board for adoption and then ultimately to vote a budget that requires a tax cap override. The last time we did it was 2015-16, so it's been 10 years. And that year was a bit of an anomaly. Our allowable tax levy increase was actually a calculated negative amount. So it was sort of an anomaly. We had expiring debt service, no tax-based growth, and a very low rate of inflation. So most districts were low to begin with, and then with our expiring debt service, it was actually negative. Again, in talking about why this recommendation and why we feel this is the year that we need to do this, if you look at the last 14 years, 2011-12 was the first year that the tax cap was in play. Since 2011-12, we've only seen an average annual growth rate of 1.41% in our foundation aid. So in that 14-year span, there have been a bunch of zeros. The largest increase we've seen in that span for foundation aid is, I think, 3.7%. But on average, each year, we're getting a 1.41% over a pretty lengthy period of time with a number of data points. During that same time, our average annual spending increase is about 2.25%. So clearly, the foundation aid increases aren't enough to keep pace with our spending. But during that time, the average levy increase on an annual basis is 2.86%. Naturally, because that's higher than the spending, rate of spending, and the foundation aid's lower than the rate of spending, the tax levy carries more of that burden on an annual basis. But I can say with confidence, and I think this illustrates that 2.86% annual average reflects that this district has been fiscally responsible and has been diligent on an annual basis of finding that balance between preserving, offering program, taking care of what needs to be done here, but also mindful of the effect on the community. Any questions on that before I turn it over to Bill?
Thanks, Matt.
Sure.
So staffing, as Matt mentioned, we have 4 teaching vacancies due to attrition in the areas of band, special ed, kindergarten, and secondary math. And these recommendations come after hours of conversation where we looked at staffing, we looked at programming, student needs, staffing needs. And our recommendation is to move forward with the hiring of the open band position. Our recommendation is to move forward with the hiring of the open kindergarten position. And our recommendation is to fill the math and special ed positions using existing faculty. We are very fortunate here that we have a number of faculty that have dual certifications or are willing to get dual certified that allow us to do this. And the possible outcomes and probable outcomes for these moves are we'll retain all core course offerings. We will have a reduction in our co-teaching model in the Regents courses. This reduced co-teaching model, it is a supplemental resource, it is not a requirement. And it's in cases where IEP services are not mandated. So it's a supplemental service. And it's an important service. And we're hopeful that we can retain some of those co-teaching models. We won't know that until we get through the scheduling process and look at loads for students. The SEL initiatives and meetings will be managed by the director of PPS, school psychologists, and counselors. So those will be the outcomes of these shifts. And we're confident that we can still provide a breadth of opportunities for students. And we've had conversations, direct conversations with the faculty that are directly involved in this. They are accepting of this, they're willing, and we appreciate their flexibility. And they understand the importance of being able to do this to provide a quality education to our students and still be mindful of our taxpayers. And it's that balance of being fiscally responsible and continuing to offer quality programs without overburdening teachers. And I think we have provided that balance through this process.
Yes. One more slide.
The battery's dying in that thing.
Well, it's going to just jump ahead 3 times. There we go.
There you
So at the last workshop, there was a lot of discussion on FTEs, right? And if we replace, if we don't replace, if we add, if we subtract. And there was the conversation and the question, the request about options. So we thought it would be best to illustrate using the 4 FTEs as sort of the foundation, knowing that we have those 4 vacancies, if you will, through attrition. Starting here with the green highlighted line, the recommended budget is with 2 FTEs being absorbed through attrition, and the other 2 being replaced with new hires. That will require the 6.7% tax levy increase. And that's what we are recommending at $16.4 million spending. So then the question is asked, well, what is the cost if you did this, if you didn't do this? The estimate, the approximate cost of each full-time equivalent of teaching faculty is about 1.25% of the tax levy. So addition, subtraction, either way, you're looking at about 1.25% on the tax levy of impact. So if hypothetically the demand or the desire was to get to be tax cap compliant and get to under 4.27%, which is our allowable, we would have to eliminate 2 additional FTEs from what we are recommending. Right? Any additional FTEs that we were going to add or that we desired to add, in addition to what we are recommending, would be another 1.25%. So we showed 2, again, just sort of aligning with the FTEs that we know we have through attrition, but certainly this chart could go on infinitely. We're looking at roughly 1.25% for every FTE that we add. So I hope this is helpful to sort of visualize what the budgetary impact would be. And at this point, based on what we've estimated, based on all the numbers we've run for all of our other expenses, at this point, any additions would directly impact the tax levy. That's where the revenue would have to come from for any additions to the budget. So I hope this is helpful to see what potential impact would be as far as additional FTEs. If no other questions, just to wrap up, despite the state not having an on-time budget, we have to move forward. Every year we do. We are bound by the law, education law, and sort of working backwards off the 3rd Tuesday in May, which is the annual election. We have to have a recommendation of a budget for adoption to you, and you have to adopt a budget before next Friday, the 28th. If this was a situation where we felt that there were things that could change that would affect things significantly, we could wait, but we do not feel that. So we are making our recommendation for this $16.4 million approximate spending plan with the 6.7% levy increase. We understand that's a heavy lift for the community, but we feel that this, as Bill mentioned, and I think I alluded to, this is what we feel is the best option, and it balances the needs of what's happening here on a day-to-day basis and those of the community. So I'll be happy to take any questions. If not, I know there's an action item that's coming up on the agenda. We can certainly discuss further. That's our recommendation.
Anybody on the board have anything at the moment, or?
What discussion later?
Yeah, we can discuss later.
Thank you, Matt.
Sure. You're welcome.
Thank you. We did make sure that tonight's presentation was done prior to the first and second community participation. So we do open the floor now for the public participation, for those online and those in the rooms. Please do remember the policy in regard regards to the time you speak and all other policy compliance as you come forward.
It's been a while since I got to board. I don't think anybody was on it except for Michelle. So after 45 years of teaching mathematics, and the last 28 of them here at Hamilton, the time has come for me to retire. And 2 years ago, when I could finally say the R word without breaking into a cold sweat, I started seriously considering retiring. And I had some concerns, some real serious concerns about our AP Calculus and AP Statistics program. Finding a strong and passionate math educator, especially one to teach the upper levels of math, is increasingly difficult, and over the past couple of years when we've been doing interviews, I'm going to say almost impossible. Well, one of my colleagues expressed interest in AP Calculus, and we've been working closely so that he's making the transition to take over. He's not at all interested in doing AP Stats. I like to think it's because he had an awesome calculus teacher when he was here and we didn't offer AP Stats. But aside from that. So it was during this time that it came to my attention that a special education teacher had a really strong interest and enthusiasm for statistics. So I started having some conversations with him. I'd like to take this moment to express my full and overwhelming enthusiastic support for the decision to transition this special education teacher into the math department. Over the time that I've worked alongside this teacher, I've had the opportunity to observe his interaction with students and his natural talent for teaching. I've seen him step into an Algebra 2 class with only a few moments' notice, and he's delivered a well-presented, well-structured, engaging lesson with enthusiasm and clarity. His ability to quickly adapt and connect with students is remarkable. He has passion and enthusiasm, and it's contagious. This individual brings a strong knowledge of math, including statistics, and has repeatedly shown an impressive ability to step into any math class and teach effectively. He connects well with students, supports their needs, and above all, brings genuine enthusiasm to the subject. So it's with utmost confidence and satisfaction that I recommend this teacher to fill my position. He's not only the most qualified candidate, but he's also the best fit for Hamilton. We're incredibly fortunate to have this opportunity. One of the reasons why I was so reluctant to be put in my retirement was my serious concern about the AP Stats program. I've worked for 15 years to start and keep that running and keep it growing. I wanted to make sure that I was leaving that program in good hands, and I can tell you that I take great comfort in knowing that this program I've worked hard to establish and nurture is going to continue to thrive with him leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else at this time? And no comments online at the moment. There is another participation later in the meeting, so we'll move on, but please, if something comes to mind, be ready to speak then. That brings us to new business. I need a motion to accept the resignation of Coraline Cooley, special education teacher, effective June 30th, as recommended by the superintendent, with sincere appreciation for her services rendered to the district.
Move.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the appointment of Shannon Newkirk as a provisional office assistant 2, effective July 1, 2025, as recommended by the director of PPS and superintendent.
Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
need a motion to approve Josh Budlong as the varsity boys basketball coach and Zach Darrow as the JV boys basketball coach for the 25-26 school year as recommended by the athletic coordinator and superintendent.
Second.
Discussion will be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the appointment of Amy Green as a long-term substitute for occupational therapist with tentative effective dates May 2nd through June 27th, as recommended by the Director of PPS and Superintendent.
Second?
Discussion will be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to revise the appointment of Magalay Mayer as probationary food service helper to a permanent civil service appointment effective April 14th, as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
Second.
Discussion would be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
Second.
Take your pick, totally. Discussion will be an executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the following monetary donations with sincere appreciation and increase the budget by these amounts as recommended by the business manager and superintendent. The First Baptist Church Deacons Fund and the Hamilton Rotary Club. Second. Any discussion?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Need a motion to approve the 2025-26, I think I said that wrong the first time, the non-public transportation requests per the April 1st deadline as recommended by the superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
So that brings us to the budget discussion. The presentation was, we can switch to a screen if we need to. It's still up on the board. Any questions or feedback before we move to a recommended action?
Well, first, I want to say thank you, Bill and Matt. I know it took a lot of work to get here. This is an improvement from the last proposal. And I'll be honest, I still have a hard time with this proposal. I think, any reduction, so looking back at our number of teachers, go back a decade, it's been shrinking for a long time. And I think we're very lucky when teachers step up and take on more, and it shows how much teachers care about the school and the students. And even last year, just looking at sort of how everybody came together and stepped up was, I think we're very lucky. But I don't want to take that for granted. I think at some point, it becomes a sort of multiplying burden when the number of teachers gets smaller and smaller. I know it's a very difficult budget year, and even without replacing any of these positions, we're looking at going with the tax cap. But I think this is honestly just a modest increase from what we were talking about during the budget workshop. I'm hopeful, and I'm really appreciative to hear teachers willing to step up again. But any way you look at this, it becomes a burden that our teachers have to take on. And that translates to our students as well. I was really hoping for slowing down a bit in attrition. I understand, standard practice. Okay. But on average, I think, I may have this number wrong, but you know, we've been losing maybe a teacher a year, losing 2. It's just, for as small as our school district is, it's a lot. I want to ask my colleagues on the board to consider some of these options, other options that are presented here. I know keeping the number of teachers the same as last year is it's a big ask to the community. It is. It's huge. I don't see that way. But we're not asking for more than what we already have. It's the current number of teachers that we have. It's already a reduction from the previous year, the year before that, the year before that. Really, we have an opportunity here to keep our school intact and allow our teachers to continue to do what they've been doing. And it's an opportunity for us to consider this budget now, because once this moment passes, that's the budget we have. The public school is not an entity that makes money, and when it comes time, I mean, of all the taxes that are levied, this is the most straightforward budget. It goes to paying our teachers, our staff, and educating our students. I don't mean to oversimplify what you do, Matt, but we know exactly where the money is going. And this is our one chance to ask the community for the funds that this school needs.
So I think, I agree with Sung's concerns about reducing teachers, especially in terms of the impact it'll have on education. That's my primary concern, how it's going to impact the education school.
Make sure you.
Yeah, very heartened by what Sue had to say about the math department. I'm glad that's happening, but I also have a concern that's a practical matter, more practical in terms of if the only way, it seems like the only major way we can account for any sticky budget situation is through attrition. So the more we use that attrition, the less we have for next year. And I think as unsure as we are as this year, I feel even more unsure about next year and the year after. And so I don't want to put us in a place where we paint ourselves into a corner by year after year, depending on attrition. And I applaud the district for the hard work that it's taken to be tax cap compliant for so many years and so consistently. When I know that it's taken a lot of work from the administration to figure out that budget, from teachers to fill out those positions and to make that work. And in this year where we see no way to get out of being tax cap, to make things tax cap compliant, I'll say the same thing I said at our budget meeting a couple weeks ago. I think in this community, my fear is, there's a fear that when you're trying to go over the tax cap, hitting that minimum need for the vote. And that can be because people don't want to raise the taxes that high, but it's also just as likely that people might not want to do a half measure. They may be upset with the fact that our school is losing a valuable resource in the FTEs that we're losing. And I don't know of any time in this district, at least since I've lived here, that the loss in FTE has then been made up later. So it seems like an almost permanent reduction in staffing. And so, in my opinion, I think that we should consider going even higher, because if that gets rejected in the vote, at least we know that people didn't want to go too high. And if we have to revote, we can go down. But when we're in the middle, I don't think we know what that means if people vote down the budget. Maybe half of the people who voted no said they wanted more, and half of them wanted it to go down. We don't know. And so, from a practical standpoint, I think it's better to say, let's keep things as what the school needs, and put that in the first place. And if there are ways that we can make things more efficient in terms of how we're using FTEs in certain departments, maybe that means we can replace an FTE in one of the departments that we've lost over the years. My first year on the board, we lost Latin as a program. I think that's been a reduction, that's been a loss that doesn't exist anymore at our school. To expand the language departments would be fantastic, right? And I'm sure everybody else who's not as biased toward languages as I could find many other departments that could use more help. So, as far as I think if we're going over, we should do as much as we can. If nothing else, so that next year we still have that flexibility that we'll lose permanently if we lose it this year.
I unfortunately disagree with you both. I am grateful that the teachers are able to find this way to stretch. I'm grateful that this presentation of the 6.7% factored into two pieces. One, hiring what we need, not hiring what we can work around, and still providing for our children, yet at the same time taking into account the fact that one of the major factors is this wealth factor in our district, right? And that's why the state's giving us less money, but we aren't a wealthy district. We have a lot of people that live out, teachers that don't live here because they don't want to live in the district because of housing costs, things of that sort. And I honestly feel that we're going to harm our children if we go too far. So what's going to happen if we go out at 9.2? Yes, we get to keep 2 more teachers, and yes, that would be great, but our family's going to have to move because of it. Will families be able to afford what they need to afford to make sure that their children have, some that don't even have these things, food for every meal, a warm place to live in the winter? That scares me, watching this go every year. If this is a budget at 6.7 that is already going to hurt some people in some ways, and I know that, but it's going to provide for our students in the way we've been providing for our students this year. It's not taking away the things that we're giving to our students, and the teachers are able to make this stretch, which from the sounds of the conversations, they're willing and able. I feel that's what going out and being budget responsible is. That's our duty here. And I know next year is going to be worse. And each conversation is going to get worse down the line. But if we go too far now, what children are we actually hurting when we're looking at the whole? And so I worry about that piece, because I feel like the other pieces have been considered in a really strong way. And so I don't want to go out higher than what we have to go. I'm glad we're going out higher than just replacing one position. I'm glad that we're replacing the elementary position, because when we had heard the things that were being considered there was a lot of loss in programming, in all different areas. There was a lot of stretch from teachers, and stretches in ways that maybe not would have been the best thing. I think it's irresponsible to go out higher than we need to. That's where I'm at.
I kind of came in today. Thank you very much for all your work that you did on this budget. I know it's really hard, and I also appreciate all of the feedback that we got from community members and teachers. So, when I came in, I was kind of thinking, like you guys were saying, go big. I was glad to see that one more teacher was added back. Based on the comments from Sue, I think, maybe the math piece can get absorbed. That's up for discussion. I'm kind of most concerned about the special ed department. I think, I can't quite remember from last year, but a lot of positions in special ed got moved around, and some are teachers, and they lost people there. I think that the co-teaching model, or team teaching model, is really a good thing for students that maybe don't have a plan but still need additional help. I think that that's a good model to have in classrooms, and I think that that's a good model. I think you spoke at the budget hearing about getting, even if it's not a year that they're going to take the Regents, getting those teachers into classrooms earlier, like in 9th grade, 10th grade. And so that's my biggest area of concern based on this, only because, Sue kind of filled in the math piece and was very confident in that. And if someone is excited to teach something, I think that is what matters. So the two people that are going to teach those, if they're excited, they're going to do a good job at their jobs. But I am concerned about that special ed position and how that's going to affect students, and how that's going to trickle down over throughout the district. And I do agree, Michelle. Like it's not anything that we take lightly. I think about senior citizens who have to bear the brunt. I mean, and I do tell people a 7.9% or 7.95% or 9.2% tax levy increase, that's not how much your taxes are going to go up. So that's like, we don't determine that. We determine just what the budget is, and then however you use it and however it's implemented and assessed through the village, or through this based on housing prices. It's very complicated. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's what people's taxes are going to go up. But I do worry about that one position. And, I just was talking to somebody about bringing Latin back, because that was a really cool program, and it's nice to have more than 2 options for language. That would be nice, but again, I mean.
We're in a be nice. I don't think we can afford the be nice part.
Matt,
Yeah.
can I ask you a question? How many households are taxed in our district?
I don't know the answer to that. I know we send out approximately 3,000 tax bills annually.
3,000.
That is not households, that is parcels of property that are taxed.
So we have 3,000 parcels taxed. And so if we're talking a difference of those 2 positions being about $200,000, that means it's about, on average, $100 per property. Some lower, some higher.
I can't answer that. I mean, there are, it's an additional $250,000 that's levied to our tax base. I'm not certainly publicly comfortable saying any on average or any estimation of what the impact would be on everybody individually. I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Well, I could say with absolute certainty that it would be $250,000 of additional monies levied to this tax base.
I was actually thinking about this question myself. I'll add some context from my perspective, looking at my tax bill. 1% increase in the school budget translates to 0.0001% increase in my tax bill. So I understand that we have to be considerate of the community as a whole. When we're talking about adding one more teacher, yes, we're asking the community, but it's not a huge ask. It's significant for us because we're a very small school. But in the
It is
context,
significant for those people that,
Can't feed their kids because of the price of groceries right now.
and
I'm sorry to
and don't
interrupt,
keep
Michelle, but, like-
don't keep their houses warm in the winter because their kids.
Well,
We
I don't
have
think
people
that
with
amount of money is,
farmland. We
But-
have people with farms.
We
with,
don't
like,
know that.
significant acreage.
That's a number that we can't say it's $100 per household. We can't say that.
we can say that.
But we can't because of the way
Matt-
that it's divided.
Matt can say it because it's complicated.
No.
But I can say, if you take the amount of money that it costs and you divide it by the amount of people paying, and that's the average, I don't know, maybe. Sue-
But that's not,
But that's the
there's more
average that
to
gets
it.
paid. And I know it's not the same for every person,
right.
but that's the amount, that's how you make it up, right? If we have $250,000 we have to pay, and we all chip in, and if I chip in more than you, we still average out to a certain number. And it's somewhere in the range of $100. And some people are gonna pay less than that, some people are gonna pay more than that. But to me, that seems like a reasonable range to keep our school in place, that is safe and is in a better off position financially in the long run and in terms of teaching power to retain. It doesn't, to me, seem like we're talking about people having to decide between, am I going to keep the heat on or not?
Well, Corey, they're already making those decisions without an increase at all.
Then that's an issue that needs to be changed in other ways. And we can't affect all of that. But I think it's too many times in our country, far too often, the burdens that we have in terms of finances or any other issues we have get passed down to children. It gets passed down to schools.
But
it
with
gets
the
taken away.
way that that the district is recommending, that I'm saying we because it's highlighted, that recommendation is not to lose programming for our students. And
But
so,
it's to stretch the program, and it's to lose 2 FTEs that will likely never get back. And while we may be able to make it work this year, what's it gonna be like in 5 years, or 10 years? I don't know, but we lose the ability to have that flexibility in the future. And we've been consistently losing that, and that's my fear, is that if we're gonna go out and we have to be over the budget anyway, we should do as much as we can.
Bill, can I ask one question?
Sure.
In the probable outcomes, I mean, this does directly affect students. There is definitely a reduced co-teaching model in the Regents courses. You talked to the budget,
co-teaching's been 1 year of co-teaching. We
This
didn't
was
have-
our first year of
We didn't have
co-teaching, yeah.
co-teaching last year. And, right, so like this is our first year up.
We have bits and pieces.
Bits and pieces, but this
This
is,
first time it's been a full model across the school for all regions courses.
but it was also said too, like you haven't even had enough time really with the co-teaching to really know what effect it has on graduates,
No.
because it's only been the 1 year. But you also talked about maintaining electives in the middle school, and I didn't hear anything about that in the probable outcomes. Does that maintain
that'll be
all of the middle
maintained.
school
Yes.
electives?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And I get your point too, Michelle, about how, Latin would be nice, and I get that yes, it would be nice, but I do feel that at least the special ed teacher, I feel like we do lose something there for students directly, at least in that one area.
How were the conversations about the impact of that special ed piece when you were looking at the needs for the students? I know the staff has changes, but what effect did the team feel was pushed towards students?
Well, the reason the co-teach model is there is to provide extra support, so those students do need that support. It's not mandated, but it's a supplemental support, so it's helping them to achieve their pathway towards graduation.
But you said that there was going to be the SEL initiatives would be managed by 3 groups of people.
Yep. Yep.
So where do you see that hitting students? Is the time allotted, will the time allotted be able to compare to this year or not?
I can't answer that. I don't know if it'll compare. It'll be a change, and it'll be a different delivery of services because you have Kevin and Jared and the counselors now providing that service, and they're doing their duties as well. It can be absorbed, obviously. It's just a different mode of delivery. And you know, Renee has done such a good job setting up procedures for our SEL team and SEL team meetings that we're confident that Kevin and his team can take them over. Will it be extra for them? Yes, it'll be extra for them, absolutely.
Further discussion?
Matt, real quick, can you clarify how, if we did go with the additional 2, say, how does what we approved this year, how does that affect next year's budget? It just gives you a higher baseline starting next year, or?
Yes, any approved tax levy comes to base it on for subsidy.
Right. Because I mean, we're not going to make a habit of going above the tax cap every time people retire, so it's kind of nice to have your starting higher.
I mean, for me, if this was a question between the 6.7 is going to keep us below the tax cap, or we have to go over, that's a very different discussion.
Yeah,
But if we're already going over the tax cap, we already have to go over that hurdle. Seems like we should do as much as we can. And if the community rejects that, then we have a place to go. I don't know what we do in this case if the community does not want this budget. I don't know what's the answer. Do you go back lower or higher? Can anybody answer that? And I think if you can't answer it, then you have to choose one way or the other. And if the community rejects that, I respect it. And we know where to go. And it makes sense. But when we're in the middle, I think it could be very confusing and unclear what the vote says if it doesn't go in the positive. And the only way we ever get a teacher back, ever get another one of these FTEs back, is by going over the tax cap at some point in the future. And so, unless we think permanently we can always, like, those 2 will be good forever, they'll be gone forever, and that's fine. It's hard for me to say, in good conscience, yeah, we'll be fine. We'll never get these back, it's gonna be okay. Especially after how much we stretched last year to make things tax cap compliant. And last year it made much of a difference that we could make this work being tax cap compliant. And it seemed like there might be some more hope on the horizon for this year. It seems like it's even, to me right now, it seems like the future is even bleaker. And And so if we can keep ourselves in a position where we have more room for next year, when we probably have to make more hard decisions, it's better to have more room. And less likely that we'll have to go the tax cap again, because we'll have more room if we need to avoid that.
If we were to,
Excuse me.
Matt, if we were to go to the 9.2, as Corey's suggesting, how does that change the recommended action that's listed there?
It just changes what you're adopting is a budget, is the spending.
Spending plan.
You're not adopting the tax.
No, I know, but there's gonna be a spending plan that's different than what's written on my page.
Correct. I don't know what's written on there, but it probably was,
16.4.
yeah, so.
So I need numbers for the
That,
next.
that number would be adjusted, yeah.
Okay. So you have numbers ready for the next two above where we are?
Just add a $250,000.
Because that's our next step, is, and I don't think that we should wait until next Friday and have another meeting, especially with break. So I think we do need to move to a recommended action. I think we do need to do that tonight. I'm not saying we have to do it at the second, but at some point we have to move the discussion along. So I need to know what number, we need to kind of go back one by one at what number we want to go at and see where we're going to land. Unless there's more discussion, but I'm trying to, I think we've covered. I know where Corey is, you're at the 9.2, correct? Amanda, where are you landing?
I'm at the 6.7.
9.2.
I'm really between the 7.95 and the 9.2, but I think going high, knowing that we have another option to make a different, if it fails, to put forth another option. I guess I would go with the 9.
And I mean, I made myself known where I land, but I understand that, yes, we can have another vote, so I will go as well for the 9.2. I just hope that if it is voted for, that those in the district are, that we're really doing what's best for students in and outside of this building. Do you good if we?
I'm gonna vote nay, but yeah.
So Matt, what's, I'll need a number, because I have to read it. Not doing math,
250,
9.2.
16, right?
Sorry, yep, 16,
16,
yep.
670, 090.
Is there other discussion at this time before we move to the action?
When we adopt this number, that also, just as it doesn't, we're not also, that doesn't mean that whoever is very excited to teach AP statistics doesn't get to teach that anymore
No,
necessarily.
no, we'll
Okay.
have more conversations
Okay.
about staffing and what we think is best.
Okay.
Go from there.
Do you get a motion?
Well, I'm just making sure we're in a good spot. No, you're good. So I need a motion to adopt the 25-26 proposed budget with an expenditure plan not to exceed $16,670,098, which includes all projected BOCES services.
Move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
And I didn't ask for discussion because we already asked. Motion carried. I need a motion to approve the 25-26 tax report card as amended. It was provided as the presentation was set for, so it's amended as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
Move. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
I need a motion, recommended action, sorry. The Hamilton Central School District approves the 25-26 tentative administrative budget of MO BOCES in the amount of $7,495,365. And there's a bunch of stuff in parentheses. And shall also allocate as contingent expenses its share of said administrative budget as appropriation, as a portion, in accordance with the section 950 of the New York State Education Law.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry for my bad reading there. All right, MO BOCES Board of Election, more of me reading not well, so here we go. The board resolution for the seat currently held by Sally Sherwood from Camden Central School District. Resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify its ballot in the name of Sally Sherwood of Camden Central School District to serve as a member of MO BOCES for the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2028 for the seat currently held by her. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk at MO BOCES on April 17th.
Second.
Discussion? Thanks to her for doing this again. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Here we go again. The board resolution seat currently held by Dr. Costello from Oneida County City School District. Resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify the ballot in the name of Dr. Costello to serve as a member of MO BOCES for the seat that he currently holds for the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2028. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk at MO BOCES on April 17th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One more. The board resolution for the seat currently held by Suzanne Carvelli for Rome. Hamilton, resolved, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education authorizes the clerk to submit and certify its ballot in the name of Suzanne Carvelli of Rome for the seat she currently holds for the term of July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2028. The ballot will be submitted to the clerk of MO BOCES on April 17, 2025.
Move. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pay schedule. A motion to approve the proposed pay schedule for HCS faculty and staff for the 25-26 school year as recommended by the business manager and superintendent.
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion? Anything different in there?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the senior class trip to Hershey Park on June 5th, as recommended by the secondary principal and superintendent. Its approval is contingent upon meeting all planning requirements of the administration, and notes that the Board of Education reserves all rights to cancel the trip if circumstances should arise concerning the safety of the students.
Second.
Discussion?
Sounds fun.
Any thoughts? You approve?
We're gonna have a good time.
Approval, 100%.
Now, isn't it traditional for the student board representative to bring back a gift from
Chocolate.
Like some chocolate.
That might have to be a thing now.
Pressure's on Colin.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have fun. Policies, first reading, discussion only, policy committee, your turn.
So this is our continued, we're using the NISBA service, so we continue to get some new policies, revised, updated policies from them. They don't significantly change what we're doing in terms of our procedures, but they do help us make sure that our policies are in line with the current legal statutes. And then we've made some revisions to make sure they reflect what's in our school, especially with the school volunteers, the way that we envision, the way that we partner with nearby local institutions to bring in volunteers to allow some flexibility in how that works, and working with a trusted organization that can kind of vet people coming to school as well.
Great.
The other one is internet safety, just aligning with how we operate. Currently, just modernizing the language of the policy based on these recommendations.
Could probably modernize it every week. Thank you for the work on that. Brings us to correspondence and information. Superintendent's report.
I just have a couple things, just an update. We're still waiting to hear from Governor Hochul on their cell phone proposal, the bell-to-bell ban. We are working as an administrative team, kind of analyzing what would be best practice as far as storage, consequences, just how that will look logistically. So really can't do anything until we have her regulations and an outline of exactly what that's going to look like. But we are having those conversations internally, so we're ready to go.
Does the model used in middle school seem to be like it could be scaled?
Yeah, that has worked very well. Those little mailboxes, and I don't know if Mark wants to talk more about it, but they seem to work well. I think it has deterred kids from bringing their phones to school. Some of them may still keep them on them, but we have not had an opportunity for them to be taken away on a large-scale basis. So, anything else? Yeah, it seems to be working. So, you know, there's a possibility that model could be scaled into the 9th through 12th grade.
Great.
Yeah. Yep. State testing has been a nightmare from the state. We just got notification that to date, over 400,000 computer-based testing sessions have been successfully submitted by students. So they seem to have, NWEA, which is the platform that's used to do the test, has fixed their technology glitches. We'll see. But
I'm not gonna hold my breath.
yeah.
Sorry.
But the windows have been extended. After the second day of putting our students and staff through that mess, we decided we were just going to stop and let this play out and see what happens. Some districts continued to test on the third day. Some of them were successful. We didn't think that was the best move. We wanted to create some time and space between that anxiety of those tests, so we rescheduled the ELA for May 5th and 6th, and the math will go as scheduled on April 29th and 30th. But it seems like NWEA and the state has kind of worked out their problems. So that's the update from the state as far as state testing. Lastly, I know I've mentioned this a couple of times, but Dr. Jeffrey Madison, who is the New York State Senior Deputy Commissioner, will be visiting Hamilton on Friday, May 2nd, to meet with our administrative team, board members, to talk about regionalization and some of the regionalization initiatives. And then we'll be hosting all of the BOCES and component superintendents here for a day of meetings with Dr. Madison. So it's an exciting day coming up, and we're fortunate that he's going to have the opportunity to visit HCS. And that is it.
Questions on the administrative reports or anything else for the administrators at this time? Athletic report, great to see how many students we have participating.
Yeah, numbers are great.
Sorry that the weather doesn't agree
Yeah.
with that, but you know, here's hoping. Your turn.
All right, so now that we've gotten pretty deep into talks about the budget, my plan for the upcoming roughly month is to be talking with seniors, especially those who are going to be eligible to vote in the budget, just kind of explaining what's happening, why it's happening, and how they can, I guess, they can give us feedback through that vote as to how they would like the school to proceed after they graduate. So that's going to be going, I'd like to get into forum. I haven't talked with Mr. Arquette yet, but it looks like that would be approved. Potentially going into some senior classes, just to mostly educate people on what is happening, why it's happening, and then how they can affect it. So that is my plan for the next month.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thanks.
And even for the students that aren't going to be at voting age, it's still important for them to learn, so good idea to share. Elementary steering?
Yes, we met just last week. We just talked briefly at the beginning about the March Book Madness, which was replaced the One School, One Book program. I don't know if the name of that changed since One School, One Book, but big hit, I guess. A lot of parents get different teachers. Apparently, Mr. Rome curated a whole stack of different grade level books, and each classroom, I guess, had their own kind of topic. Like kindergarten, I think, was friendship. I can't quite remember, but then there was a whole stack of books that was about that one kind of topic, and parents came in and read sometimes, and they just kind of went through this nicely curated stack of age-appropriate material. So feedback was good on that. And then we spent the rest of the time going through, and Heather now has a summer project to redo the HCS Elementary Family Handbook, or Student and Family Handbook. I don't think we decided. For next year, that's going to take pieces from the Code of Conduct as like for the elementary students to incorporate, and then also include lots of other things in here. You know, like some of the stuff was very outdated, and then things that maybe were missing, like you know, when to keep your kid home from school. We looked at a bunch of different handbooks from different schools and kind of took some ideas from that too. But something that's not so, this is very text heavy, you know, something that's a little bit more user friendly, that has some graphics, and that would go home in a nice bound. I think we're going to have a bound copy go home to every family, so that they can reference it throughout the year. There's probably going to be like, well, hopefully there'll be like a parent section in the beginning and then a student section that would say, here are your responsibilities as a student, and here are our responsibilities as, you know, teachers and whatever. So it's going to be a big project, but we just went through those and highlighted ideas. And so that is going to be revamped, right? You're excited?
Thank you for doing that. Secondary.
Oh, I have one more thing to add.
Sorry.
Which I just remembered, but the grant that we applied for through the Community Foundation was accepted, but Heather also got questions back to clarify a couple of things. So I think that that's good. They like read it and had some questions that she answered. So hopefully we'll hear back, in the next month maybe? So that's exciting.
Very exciting. It's a lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work.
Secondary committee, we met a while ago.
It was a while ago.
It was a while
We have
ago,
one
okay.
coming up.
All right. Like, I don't think we met last week. A lot of work on what's the name of the program? We didn't change the name We talked about changing the name of that program.
Oh, the circle group for lunch
Yes.
is called Girls Circle. We talked about rebranding that to try to drive more interest for students. And so hopefully, some conversation, maybe we can tap a few students to kind of give their input and then present it in a way that makes it something that more people would be interested in. So we talked a lot about that. In the works, we still have, this was brought up a couple meetings ago about like navigating our webpage, because a lot of people have questions. I think Colin, you spoke about this, specific to like the counseling office. How do I get a transcript? How do I get working papers? Those types of questions that the administrative assistants field all the time. So the idea is we make an FAQ and have direct links to those spots on the counselor's webpage that already houses all that information, because they do have a lot of great information there. So just trying to make it easier for people to find that information for themselves. And that can be even like the course catalog we talked about. So the course catalog is sort of a direct link to that. So that's in the works. Jen Inman has it right now. She's going to add all the things that people are constantly asking her. And then we'll probably bring it back to the group to get some more feedback and hopefully have something available on the webpage to help that guidance. And then we're also working on an advocacy documents. So trying to collect information about representatives you can reach out to if you would like to talk to them about anything. Obviously, we're a little biased towards the educational aspect of some of the decisions they make, but we thought it would be great to have a document that directed you to different political leaders and possibly provide even starter questions or some things that has been shared with us that they would be looking for. What should you say? Should you tell them this, that, and the other thing? Like your address and what school you go to and all that, all those little pieces. And maybe create some sentence starters for people. So that's in the works as well.
Inclusivity.
Chris, can we get your help on this?
Sure.
This way.
Yeah. We have some momentum in the area of conducting a senior exit interview. So we have a graduate student from Colgate who is working with Meg Gardner and who is going to conduct these interviews for us. I sent out an initial interest survey to the senior class, and it was basically just a yes or no question. Would you be interested in participating in an exit interview and giving us some valuable information that we can use to change the school in a positive way? We got about 45% of the seniors that said yes, so anybody who's ever sent out a survey knows that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So now the challenge has been, and maybe Colin can help me here, is so now I need to know who they all are. So I sent out another email to the senior class and I said, hey, you said yes to this survey. Now I need to know who you are. I didn't get them all. I got 10 out of the 17, so maybe you can help me get them. But we'll be sending out notifications to parents to let them know what we're up to and give them plenty of time before it happens if they have any issues or want to ask any questions about it. But we're really hopeful that we're going to get some good information, some actionable information from this survey that will help us make the school a better place.
These will all be conducted by somebody who's not from the school.
That's correct, and the idea was, that perhaps they would be more willing to be more candid if it was somebody who they have no connection with. We'll see. Hopefully, if this goes over well, it could become a tradition that we do. The senior exit interview could help us every year.
So Colin, if you can get that word out too. It won't be Mr. Dowsett.
Yeah, it might.
Advocacy updates.
Don't have a lot. There is, NISBA does have a take action out right now, and it's basically to protect public education. So it is urging Congress to take action against some of the federal budget reconciliation proposals that are currently out there. So I can send this out, we can maybe send this out, they're trying to get as many people in the community as well, so maybe we can send this out with some background. And you can also text reject to 52886 to be able to submit your thoughts on that. And then the 2025 resolutions process is underway, so we have until July 18th if we want to put any initiatives forward for vote for NISBA to take advocacy action on. So if you guys can think of something that isn't already in the works that you want us to do as well. That's it.
Thank you. This brings us to the board update. Board update is what we talked about before, behind Cory and Amanda. Public hearing will be on May 13th at 6 p.m. Public
Is that
vote
in here? Or the
will be in
election?
here.
The hearing?
Yeah.
Here.
And then May 20th is the vote from noon to 8 p.m. in the bus garage. Some people think that it's the early morning vote. It's not. It's noon to 8 p.m. So there's that. It brings us to community participation. Nobody online has made a message yet, so we'll give them a moment, but if anybody in the room would like to come forward, again, remember the policy. Thank you. Seeing nobody moving, we will be moving to executive session. There will be no vote after executive sessions. Will not come back online. Thank you for all of those who came tonight. It's nice to actually have people in our meetings, so thank you. I need a motion, sorry, I lost my place on the paper. I need a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss matters pertaining to particular individuals and collective bargaining. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll take a 10-minute recess.